In today's video, we're going to be taking another look at Contra Operation Galuga. This 2024 game was released by Konami and WayForward and is in a reimagining of the original Contra with other elements added to it. Originally, I was super excited for this game, played the demo and absolutely loved it, but now that I've had more time with the full game, was I wrong about it? Hello YouTube, it's me, it's Michael B. Thank you so much for checking out the video, and in today's video, we're here to talk about Contra Operation Galuga, and was I wrong? I want to say a huge thank you to Konami, WayForward, and Keymailer for sending me out this game for the purpose of this review. Now, I'm a huge Contra fan. I really enjoyed the demo. Now that I have the full game in my hand, do I still think it's an excellent game? Does it do justice to the Contra franchise, and would I recommend it to other people? But before we get into that, I want to say thank you so much, everybody, for checking out the video. Guys, I always appreciate your support. If this is your first time to the channel and you like what you see, go ahead, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, all that YouTube jazz. So let me tell you guys, I was pretty freaking excited when they first announced that Contra Operation Galuga was coming out. I mean, another classic Contra-style game. Pinch me, as an NES fan and an overall Contra fan, I was super excited. I even had a chance to play the demo. I live streamed it on my channel, and I thought it was fantastic. You guys know, if you've been watching me for years, I'm a big fan of Contra. I have owned and played all the games. I've never been particularly good at them. The difficulty level is just a grade above what I can get into, but I always have a lot of fun. I was lucky enough to get a game code from Konami and WayForward to check out the full game of Contra Operation Galuga, and now that I've had a chance to check it out, the full game that is, did my opinion change? So guys, I have the Steam version of this game, and I have to say it plays great on my PC. The game looks really good, runs really well through Steam, and for those fans of you out there that own Steam Decks that are considering picking this up, I've got good news. It plays extremely well on your Steam Deck, fully compatible. You guys are going to love it. So let's get into the game itself. First off, let's start with the story and the concept. This is basically a reimagining of the first game, going back to the initial NES game where they land in the jungle. You're going to fight the Red Falcon forces, and of course, it's not just a terrorist organization. There's spooky aliens, but there's a couple other elements that are actually in there as well. Really weird how there's a reason the aliens specifically went to the Galuga Islands. There's an ancient alien artifact that's on the island, protected by the people there, and the aliens are trying to capture it. And of course, the U.S. government calls in the Contra Force. They also call in some other groups, X-Force. There's another person on the island that's going to join you. And then you all have to stop the alien forces from getting this artifact. So into the game itself, and there's several different ways in which you can enjoy and play Contra Operation Galuga. First up is the story mode, and this is the main campaign for Contra Operation Galuga. You basically play through the entire game. This also includes these cutscenes, other characters, and dialogue sequences that go along with it that actually extend the game and add some intrigue to it. I mean, this is not something we're familiar with classic Contra games. You just kind of get to the action. There's not a whole lot going on in between the scenes. It's mostly action. So this is a new element that's going to really, to bring in some new viewers and tell a story about the original Contra. So while playing through that, you have a couple options. You can choose the level of difficulty, which is not something that's super common in the NES Contra games that was first introduced in the Super Nintendo Contra games. You can go with easy, normal or hard, and choose your difficulty the way you wanted it. I played normal a bit, which is actually pretty good, but I mean, most people are probably going to pick easy. This is Contra, after all, one of the hardest known games in the world, so you're probably going to want to pick easy on this if you're new to the series. You can also adjust your health meter. So the traditional Contra has one-hit deaths, which is going to be very hard with this game because the action is fast and furious. This is a run and gun shooter, so expect this to be bullets everywhere. You're avoiding everything. One hit may be a little tough. So you also have the option of a health bar, which gives you a 3-hit meter. Now, if you want to just enjoy Contra the way that it was intended from the original days, and you don't really care about the stories, the cutscenes, and all that stuff, you can also just play traditional arcade mode, which will give you the entire game from start to finish, except it cuts out all the cutscenes, all the character stuff. It's just the run and gun action. So if you want to do that, go ahead. It has the exact same difficulty options. You can choose easy, normal, hard. You can also go with 1-hit or 3-hit kills, but it does add a very cool feature that you might want to check out, and you can actually choose which kind of sound you want in the game. We'll get into sound a little bit later, but this is a fun option. Now, as you progress through the story, there's a couple unlockables that you're going to actually pick up. So as you move on, you're going to unlock certain playable characters you can go with. But one of the other things you unlock is for the next gameplay option, and that is challenge mode. So as the story progresses, you're going to add more and more challenges to challenge mode. You can go in and do something like a speed run, boss battle. That will all be unlocked as the story continues. Last up, there's also a perk mode, which I don't really understand. I guess it's a way to make the game easier so you can start levels with like a laser beam or other things like that. I mean, this is not something I necessarily want or need in my Contra games, but again, in order to make it accessible so it's enjoyable for everybody, maybe this is something you would enjoy. The characters control really well in the game. For somebody who's put a lot of time into the console versions of Contra and all the other following games, I have to say it's very reminiscent of the original game. WayForward did a great job of mirroring that, but with some quality of life improvements. For one, the shoot button is B, but you can hold it down regardless of which weapon you have, and it will be a rapid shot. So no wearing out your thumb on that one. Now, you do have your traditional Contra, flippy somersault jump, but there's an added element where you can do a double jump in the middle, which really makes it so much more fun for progressing through the platforming stages. You can reach other levels you normally wouldn't be able to reach, and sometimes it's awesome for avoiding enemy gunfire. Then a newer element that I'm not really familiar with, but they've added a dash tactic by pressing the A button so you can dash to move a little bit quicker to avoid enemy projectiles, and I mostly use this on the hover cycle stages to get out of the way, and sometimes to avoid certain boss attacks, you're going to want to use the dash attack. Another element they brought in from maybe the more modern, or at least, 16-bit Super Nintendo games, is you can actually change between your weapons. So there's power-ups that you're going to pick up throughout the stages. I mean, it's a Contra game. Of course there's power-ups. All the traditional Contra power-ups are here, including some of the later ones that were added later on in the series, like the homing missile, which I believe came into Operation C and also Super C. And you also got the C, I don't even know what they're called, but it's almost like a little grenade type shot that you're throwing out there. Of course, my favorite is always the spread. Now, the cool thing about with this game is you can actually overpower these weapons, so if you collect a second spread shot, it will actually add an option to increase the spread. It actually makes your shot more powerful. Now, you can hold on to this until you are hit by an enemy. Your normal spread shot will stay with you unless you die with it equipped, but with the double spread shot, you get hit once, it goes back down to a single spread shot. There's also an option if you hold the left trigger down to overpower your weapon. Now, this will get rid of one of your weapons. If you have a double weapon, it just brings it down to a single, or if you have a single, it'll eliminate the weapon from your arsenal altogether. But what it does, it unlocks a certain power. Now, some slow down time, other will set up a barrier. do a lot of testing with the weapons yourself to find out which ones do what. I know with Contra you mainly want to go on the offense, but sometimes defense is the best strategy, and they'll really help out during some of the boss fights. Now, while this game is a reimagining of the first Contra and it re-looks at those levels and tells kind of the same story, it uses elements from all the other Contra games. You're going to see it with the power-ups, you're going to see it with some of the stage design, some of the way the game plays, and especially with some of the boss fights are iconic callbacks to boss fights from other games like from Contra Hardcore. Now, when it comes to the graphics, this may be an area that upsets some people. I'm sure a lot of people would have liked to have seen this be more of a retro modern game with either the 8-bit or the 16-bit style for the characters. They actually went with modern graphics here, which they don't look amazing, but they also don't look bad. I mean, it's a good update, but it definitely comes across as kind of a budget game. There's also cutscenes that honestly are really good looking, but not necessarily done super well. It's almost like they're a couple generations behind where we are right now. That also gives it that element of being a budget game. It's cool that they put it in, but you can definitely tell these cutscenes were not their main priority. Hence the arcade mode where they're taken out altogether. I guess they didn't want to put a ton of effort into them because they knew most people would avoid them anyways. Going back to the graphics are good. The characters look good, albeit a little, I don't know what the right term is, hokey, but I like them. There's only one real big problem I have with the character designs and stuff like that. It's during some stages, this is a new thing for Contra, the camera view shifts a little bit where you're either going to be further away or closer up depending on where the action is. So sometimes your character is going to be big and visible and a really good size, and other times he's going to be really small. Now with most Contra games, I'm used to my characters remaining the same size and having the same, aspect ratio on the screen. So maybe that won't bother other people, but for me, I'm like, hey, you made them really small. It's hard to avoid these bullets now. So let's go back and talk about the sound, and one of the most important thing with the Contra games, always have been in my mind, is the music. It's so fun to go play through these games, but those themes that they actually included, especially back in the NES days, were just so important. Now, when you're playing through the story mode, you're going to be locked into new modernized versions of the classic themes. These sound good. These are definitely a throwback to the original games. I think you're going to be very happy with them. But luckily, in arcade mode, it gives you a couple options. You can play with the original themes, or you can play with new modern versions of those themes. So I'm going to play you a little bit now of my playthrough in arcade mode with the Way Forward mix playing, and they did a really good job of remixing some of these classic Contra themes. So last but not least, what I want to talk about here is the difficulty, because for people that are NES adjacent, or, you are familiar with classic Contra games, you may be familiar with the fact that they're really friggin' hard. They're in fact balls to the wall hard, so that may scare you off. But I want to say, take a little breather on this, because there's a lot of quality and life improvements that make this game more accessible to everybody while still maintaining the challenge that'll keep classic Contra fans happy. First off, like we talked about earlier, is the ability to play with classic one-hit deaths. For you masochists out there that want to really challenge yourself, you do not have to play with the life bar. You can switch that off, play with your one-hit deaths, and get yourself absolutely slaughtered. You're probably better than me, so that won't become a problem. But you can do that. Or if you're like me and you want to make it more enjoyable, turn on the life bar. You get a choice of 3 hits. And for people saying that the 3-hit life bar isn't classic or canon Contra, you will remember back in Contra Hardcore that game was absolutely brutal here in the US. And if you actually look up the Japanese version, I do believe they had a 3-hit health bar in the Japanese version. So the question is, with those things in place, can I beat this game? Well, if you've been watching my channel for years, you know my theory is any game with unlimited continues pretty much can be beaten. And guess what? Contra Operation Galuga has unlimited continues. In fact, not only does it have unlimited continues, you continue directly at the stage you were on, and it also features checkpoints mid-stage. Say, for example, you make it to the mid-stage boss battle and you beat him, but then you die shortly after or run out of lives shortly after. It will restart you just after the boss battle, and you have a brand new assortment of health and lives to try to get through the rest of the stage. So again, another opportunity and quality of life improvement for those that aren't necessarily Contra experts. So anyways, guys, that's my look at Contra Operation Galuga on Steam. Was I wrong about it? Yes, because originally I thought this was another great Contra entry, but in retrospect, this game is friggin' awesome. I had so much fun with this. I have always loved the Contra games, but one thing that really kept me away was the difficulty. I love the fact that they made this game more moderate by adding in the 3-hit health bar, by adding in the unlimited continues, the mid-level checkpoints. It all made it so much more accessible for somebody like me that loves Contra, but always found it just a little bit too difficult. I'm outing myself as a shitty gamer, I guess. But at the same time, they still retain those elements that you could go in, take off the health bar, and get back to one-hit deaths that make Contra so incredibly hard. And if you found it too easy, you could actually jack up the difficulty. So I love what they did here. They did something that makes this game accessible to new people, to moderate skill level players, and for classic Contra fans. I love what they did there. The graphics, well, the graphics are good, but could be a little bit better. The sound is fantastic. Overall, the gameplay is a love letter to classic Contra. I can't recommend this game high enough. Guys, go check out Contra Operation Galuga. If you like Contra, if you like run and gun games, you won't regret it. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comments down below, what do you think of Contra Operation Galuga? If you're a big Contra fan, are you excited about picking it up, or have you already picked it up? And if so, what do you think? And if you've never been a big Contra game fan, but you've been interested in getting into the series, but maybe a little bit scared of the difficulty, are you interested in jumping in and trying this one out? Anyways, guys, thank you so very much for watching. This is MichaelBtheGameGenie, and I'll talk to you next time.